This week, the Venezuelan government announced it will withdraw from the Organization of American States. Venezuela's foreign minister complained the OAS has a, quote, campaign to destroy democracy there, led by, in their words, the United States.
And on the streets of Caracas and other cities in Venezuela, massive protests have continued unabated.
Let's get now to our colleague stationed in Caracas, reporter Cody Weddle with the latest developments there. Cody, good morning. Thank you for being with us today.
Well, good morning to you guys.
So, Corey, give us a report on right now, the status report. Was there demonstrations? Were there demonstrations last night? Or what is the situation in Caracas today?
I think if you are Nicolas Maduro, you've breathed a bit of a sigh of relief this week because as the demonstrations and protests against him did continue, the crowds were a bit lighter this week. And I think much of that can be attributed to the fact that many universities and schools were back in session. But that sigh of relief won't last long. The opposition is calling for more protests and demonstrations on Monday. And Monday is May Day here. So schools will be out of session, universities out of session, people will be off of work, so it will be another opportunity for the opposition to flex its muscles in the street.
Cody, you know what we've been seeing here, the protests, largely anti-government protests. And now, this week, it seemed that even in some of the places where people were largely supportive of the Maduro government, some of the poorer areas who felt like the government is a government that will take care of them, are suddenly realizing that it's not. And so some of protests are now spreading to places that aren't necessarily anti-government groups. Does that signal something to you?
Absolutely. That is what has been really striking about this most recent wave of protests. You know, in 2014, the last massive wave of protests, most of these protests were contained to the eastern part of Caracas, the more well-off sections of Caracas. But as you said, we have seen these protests cross over into the west part of Caracas, and in many cases in other working class areas. And when these protests cross over into the west, a week ago, last Saturday, we saw people being welcomed by those people who live into the west. They were coming out onto the streets saying, "Welcome to the west of Caracas." So if you are the government, I think that makes you very nervous because these places that are traditionally pro-government, we are seeing people come out of their homes and support these protests.
Corey, the last figure I saw was 26 people have died protesting in the last couple of weeks. And I want to say, I just have real admiration for you. You have been out on the street in the middle of some of these protests. Have you felt threatened while you were out there reporting?
Well, it is a dangerous situation every time we go out, and we try to be as careful as possible, and that includes, you know, being with other reporters at all times, being with the press at all times. There are threats that can come from many different sides. I mean, if you are in the middle of these confrontations, we saw a protester who was killed by a tear gas canister because they're saying that because authorities have been launching these tear gas canisters in a direct line instead of up in the air as they should be launched, and that killed a protester just this week. So it certainly is a dangerous situation. We try to be as careful as we can with a helmet, bulletproof vests, and masks, but you can only be careful to a certain point, of course.
And a critical component of bringing the world what is happening on the streets. Cody, stay safe. Thanks for being with us
Corey,
today.
thanks very much.
And up next.